So synthetic division is when you have a polynomial and you are dividing it by a factor. So for instance, anytime that you factor something, you put it in parentheses, and that is a solution on your graph. So when you had a quadratic and you factored it, those two numbers, when you set those two numbers in parentheses equal to 0, that's where it crossed the x-axis. And so if you divide by those, so we're going to learn, using synthetic division, we're going to learn how to divide by the factors and then get a new polynomial from that. And it's easier than long division, a lot easier, and it's kind of fun in my opinion. I don't know what you'll think, but if the remainder is 0, then the divisor is a factor. That's a highlighter. Factor. That means that it evenly goes into the function. So here we have x to the third plus 5x squared minus 7x plus 2 divided by x minus 2. So the first thing that you do is you find the 0 of whatever you're dividing by. So you're setting this equal to 0, so x equals 2. And you put it in what we call the box. So I'm just going to write a 2 right here. Then I'm going to draw a long L. And it should go down far enough to where you're able to stack like 2 lines of numbers, 2 rows. Oh. So you put a 2 to the left, then you draw a long L. Then you're going to write the coefficients of the polynomial. So here's my polynomial. Coefficients are the numbers that are in front, and they go in descending degree. So I have 1x cubed, 5x squared, negative 7x, and 2. Now you'll notice that in this particular example, it goes 3, 2, 1, 0. Like the degrees go, and there is a coefficient for every single one. But in parentheses here it says don't forget missing terms. So let's say that it went from like x to the 4th plus x squared, and it skipped a degree. You would need to put a 0 in that place. And there are none on the notes, but I'll do one on the homework for you. Everybody's here. Oh, Rebecca's not here. Sorry. You didn't hear me. That's fine. I'll do one on the homework for you guys that will show you an example of a missing degree. Okay, so from there, you have it set up. The first thing you do is you bring down your first term. So I'm going to bring down a 1. And then from there, you multiply your 2 times that number. So 2 times 1 becomes 2. I'm going to put a 2 here. So you're multiplying 2 times 1, and it goes in this, it goes below. Then you're going to add down. So 5 plus 2 is 7. Yeah, then you do 2 times 7 is 14. Add down, negative 7, positive 14 becomes a positive 7. 2 times 7 is 14. Add down, you get 16. So the last number becomes your remainder. So how to write this final answer. Anytime that you have, like if you have a polynomial with the degree of 3, or any degree, and you're dividing by a degree of 1, then your answer is always going to be your degree minus what you're dividing by. So 3 minus 1 is 2. And so if I have an x cubed, I'm dividing by an x, I'm left with an x squared. So I would write this as 1x squared plus 7x plus 7. Then if you have a remainder, which you don't always, and most times you don't, but if you do have a remainder, you would put plus 16 over, and then you put it over your divisor, x minus 2. So the remainder goes over the divisor. And so this just, it takes a little bit of practice, but you'll get the hang of it and it's going to get so quick. Okay, so use synthetic division. Here's my polynomial. Here's my factor. It tells me that it's a factor, so I should get a remainder of 0. And if you don't, then you did something wrong. So what's going to go in my box? I'm going to set this equal to 0, so x equals -2. So -2 goes in the box. Draw my L. Then what numbers read across the top line? 3, -4, -28, -16. First step, I bring 3 down. -2 times 3 is -6. Add down, -10. -2 times -10 is +20. Add down, -8. -2 times -8 becomes a +16. You end up getting 0. I always put a little check mark when I get a 0 because it makes me feel accomplished. Then I'm going to write this as a new polynomial with a degree 1 less than what I started with. So if I started with x to the third, I now have x squared. So 3x squared minus 10x minus 8. That is my answer. I don't have a remainder. So in number 3, it says x equals 3. So it's not in parentheses, therefore I don't need to solve it. So I just put a 3 here. What numbers go across? Good. Bring the 1 down. Then I multiply. So try doing that on your own. Okay, so for number 4, it's saying x minus 4 is a factor, so x equals 4. Then using synthetic division, you should have gotten both of these answers. Any questions about these? Okay, for number 5, so the last one, it's just showing you all the different ways that it could be asked of you. So number 5, it's saying that f of -2 equals 0. That's another way of saying that -2 is a factor. So I put -2 in the box. So you could have like x equals -2, you could have x plus 2 is a factor, or you could say f of -2 equals 0. And any one of those three mean the same thing, that you want to put -2 in the box. Okay, here are the 2 answers for 5. I want to do one example where maybe like a number is skipped or it doesn't have a certain degree. So if you go to number 1 on the homework, yeah, let's do number 1. So in this case, dividing by x minus 4, so what number goes in the box? 4. My highest degree is x to the third, so I have 1 x to the third, -5 x squared. The next one would be x, but I don't have one, so I must put a 0 here. There's no x. And then -2. So it's always going in order of highest degree, going 1 less, 1 less, 1 less, 1 less until the final number is your constant. And if it goes from, if it were like x to the 5th plus 3, then you would have a 1 here, a 0x to the 4th, a 0x to the 3rd, 0x squared, 0x, and then a 3. So you must put the zeros where there is no degree. You can't put 1, -5, and -2 because you're going to end up getting the wrong answer, or you'll get a remainder and you shouldn't. And if it tells you that something is a factor, then a good way to check your answer is that you know that you don't have a remainder. So if you get a remainder, you did something wrong, you can go back and fix it. So I treat it the same way. 4 times 1 is 4, -1. Wait, did I do something wrong? Let's see. You're right, it doesn't say it's a factor, so I am going to have a remainder. So since it doesn't say it's a factor, I can get a remainder. So I'm going to write this as x squared minus x minus 4 minus 18 over x minus 4. Yeah, you keep the negatives. Like if there's a negative in front, you put them.